Thank you, and once again, good morning to students and teachers of the Word of God. We have a great lesson before us, and it forms one of the greatest expository sermons any preacher will ever preach. I suppose almost every preacher that ever preached since 1611 preached a message on Naaman the Syrian in 2 Kings 5. And it's a great passage. It's a great passage. There's a great deal of material in it, devotional material and spiritual material, especially in connection with an unsaved man who's a great man and a good man, but still lost. Naaman goes down in the Bible as a perfect example of a brave, valorous, honest, straight, loyal man that's incurably diseased. And leprosy, of course, you know in your Bible, is a type of sin. In the Old Testament, they had to go to the priest to get the thing taken care of and trust the Old Testament sacrifices. And this case here is very outstanding because when the Lord Jesus Christ shows up, he mentions it. Lord Jesus Christ is not in the habit of throwing bouquets and roses to people and kudos, but he mentions Naaman the Syrian, and it almost cost him his life. In Luke chapter 4, when Christ just begins his ministry after the temptation, he's in the synagogue at Nazareth, and he tells his Jewish audience, in the days of Elisha the prophet, there were many people that had leprosy in Jerusalem, and Elisha was only sent to one of them, and he was a Gentile, Naaman. And you remember what happened when he said that? Well, they mobbed him and tried to throw him off a cliff. That's Luke chapter 4. Well, that's the subject of our Bible lesson this morning, Naaman the Syrian. Very profitable lesson. And especially if there happens to be, which there probably is not, some clean-cut, honest, hard-working.
This is Don Nesbitt YouTube.
Loyal, courageous, brave, faithful businessman raising a family right and abiding by the laws of the country who has never had his sins washed away. And it's be very important that such a man listen very carefully for the next 25 minutes. Don't forget the Baptist Blowout now coming out in a couple of weeks. I'll be here this February the 13th preaching and drawing a chalk talk in the evening service as usual, Lord willing. And then coming up on February the 24th, we have a 4-day blowout, 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th. Services beginning Thursday night and then continuing Friday morning, Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning, Sunday night. And you'll get your battery charged, I'll guarantee, with these gentlemen I'm bringing in. I've known one of these fellows for about 40 years. And I've known the other two for about 25 years. And these fellows are born-again, saved, soul-winning, Bible-believing preachers. They're not celebrities. They don't advertise the big schools, and put the pretty girl in the front to get the kid to come and get him and date him a blonde, You know all that fleshy crap that goes on with these colleges, Come enjoy the exciting spirit from the campus, and there's a blonde there, a couple of blondes, you can pick up on the way. These fellows are not in that league. I'm not in that league either. We don't advertise anywhere in the Pensacola Bible Institute. There's no advertisements anywhere on it. But these fellows they're one of them's an old timer. One is from John R. Rice's crowd back in the days of Curtis Hudson and Bob Jones Sr. and Tom Malone and Lee Roberts and that bunch. And the other two are young men that were trained here and went out and started works from nothing in New England. And New England is tough ground, believe me. The Northeast and the Northwest are the most barren places in America today and have the greatest need of the truth of any places in America. That'll be New England and the northwestern states around Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Washington, Oregon. That's where there's a real famine in the land. Now, I realize the famine is universal now. You go coast to coast and can't hardly find the Word of God, but it's really most wretched in those places. All right, we're 2 Kings here, and we're 2 Kings chapter 5 on the life of Naaman the Syrian. Verse 1. Now Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Assyria, was a great man. That's the first statement. With his master. Well, you can be great with one crowd and lousy with another crowd, depending on what crowd you hang out with. Birds of a feather flock together. A great man in the mafia might not be too great a man in the police force. A great man in a bar room might not be a great man in a prayer room. With his master, an honorable fellow was an honorable man, as they say of the old West Pointers, an officer and a gentleman. Because by him the Lord had given deliverance to Syria. Won battles for them. He was also a mighty man in valor. He wasn't just a very intelligent man and a very honorable man, but he was a brave soldier. He was a mighty man in valor. That's fighting sword and spear, a hammer and shield, a club and axe. But this is the disjunctive conjunction that unhitches the junction. But he was a leper. Leper is a type of sin throughout the Old Testament. Can the Ethiopian change his skin, the leopard change his spots? So may you do good that are accustomed to do evil. He was a leper. It's as much as saying this man was a great banker and an honest man and paid his bills and loved his wife and was true to her and was a leading man in activities as a city commissioner and paid his debts and never gypped anybody, but he was a sinner. That's what ties the rag on the bush. You may be the finest fellow in Pensacola, but you're a sinner, just like Al Capone, the son of Sam, and Adolf Hitler, and Frankenstein, and all the rest of them. They had no difference, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. But he was a leper. And the Syrians had gone out by companies and had brought away captive out of the land of Israel a little maid, and she waited in Naaman's wife. This is a prisoner of war, kidnapped. And they had taken this little girl captive from the home and brought her away from Syria and took away from her family. And she said to her mistress, this is Mrs. Naaman, would God my Lord were with the prophet that is in Samaria, for he would recover him of his leprosy. Now look at the concern that little girl has for her master who kidnapped her. Instead of saying, well, it serves the blankety-blank right, he ought to get disease for taking me away from my homeland and stealing my mom and my daddy. But she speaks up for the Lord. Would God, my Lord, were with the prophet that is in Samaria, that'll be God's prophet. That'll be Elisha, who worked as an understudy under Elijah before he was caught up to heaven. So the next great lesson we learn from this little story is that if God can't find a man to witness, he'll find a woman. And if he can't find a woman, he'll find a little boy. And if he can't find a little boy, he'll find a little girl. But he will find somebody. God Almighty is going to have somebody to speak up for him, no matter what the world says, no how much they hate his guts or their guts. God is going to have a young man or a young woman somewhere that's going to stand up and point his finger in your face or her finger and tell you you're going to hell without Christ. He is not going to leave this world without a witness. If you grown men who's sissified and worried about your image and your income and your social standing, then God will get him a woman. And if God can't find a woman, he'll get a child. But he will have somebody to stand up for him against the workers of iniquity, and this little old girl, probably not 12 years old. And one went in and told his Lord, that's Naaman, he told him, thus and thus said the maid that is in the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel. Wrong man to contact. The little girl said, you don't need any king, you need the prophet that is in Samaria. And the king gets orders mixed and figured, well, the king's the big shot over there like I'm the big shot over here, so I'll contact the big shot. Go to, I will send a letter to the king of Israel. And he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver and 6,000 pieces of gold and 10 changes of raiment. Somewhere between all the smaller amount, the silver about $52,800 and the piece of gold coming to about $384,000, depending upon how you count it. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, now when this letter is coming to thee, behold, I have therewith sent Naaman my servant to thee, that thou mayest recover him of his leprosy. Well, it's the wrong place to go. A lot of kings can't handle anything. They can't even handle their own countries, let alone a man with an incurable disease. So it came to pass, verse 7, when the king of Israel read the letter, that he rent his clothes and said, Am I a God to kill and to make alive? This man doth send unto me to recover a man of leprosy? Wherefore consider, I pray you, how he seeketh a quarrel against me. He's looking for alibi to go to war. That's pretty obvious. This happened more than once in the life of these kings. Like back there in 1 Kings chapter 20, one time Ben-Hadad sent a letter to Ahab. And he said to him, Thus saith Ben-Hadad, thy silver, thy gold is mine, thy wives, thy children, the goodliest are mine. And the king of Israel answered and said, O my lord, O king, I am thine, and all that I have. See, it's a formal invitation to be an ally. But the next messenger came back and said, Thus speaketh Ben-Hadad, Although I have sent to thee, saying, Thou shalt deliver me thy silver, thy gold, thy wives, and the children, yet I will send my servants to thee tomorrow about this time, and they shall search thine house, and the house of thy servants, and it shall be whatever is pleasant in thine eyes, they shall put it in their hand, take it away. Then the king of Israel called the elders of the land and said, Mark, I pray you, and see how this man seeketh mischief. Now all the elders said, Don't listen to him, don't hearken to him. So this king says, I pray you, see how he seeks to quarrel with me, trying to get an alibi to go to war. And it was so when Elisha, the man of God, had heard the king of Israel had rent his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, Wherefore hast thou rent thy clothes? No need to have a fit about it, get upset about it. Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there's a prophet in Israel. He said, I can take care of his leprosy, send him to me. So Naaman came with his horses and his chariot, and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. The king sent him on down there. Notice he came with his horses and his chariot, brought his troops with him. Well, they weren't suffering from leprosy. Why the big parade? Why the big show? Well, you see, through all this Naaman's pride, which is the sin that damns a man. The damning sin of the New Testament, according to the Holy Spirit, is not believing on Christ. And that's tied to the fact that Christ was God's righteousness, manifest. And if you don't want it, that shows what you are. You are somebody who thinks your righteousness is greater than God's righteousness. Oh, Ruckman, I wouldn't think that. If you haven't accepted Christ, that's what you've been practicing since you were born. An unsaved man doesn't go to hell for adultery. David committed adultery, wound up in New Jerusalem. A man can't go to hell for murder. That's nonsense. Moses murdered a fellow and hid him in the sand. A fellow can't go to hell for lying, swearing, stealing, cussing, cursing, pedestry, masochism, sadism, fraud, bankruptcy, embezzlement, kidnapping. No. A man goes to hell for what he doesn't do. He doesn't accept God's righteousness. You say, why not? Because he's self-righteous. That was Muhammad's trouble. That's why he said Christ didn't die on the cross for anybody's sins. That's why he said Christ didn't even die on the cross. He rejected God's righteousness and made him up his own Bible, his own religion, where he could be righteous himself without God's righteousness. That's what settled his hash. And Buddhists too, while you're at it. And I don't know how many, 10 millions and millions of Americans and Europeans who thought their sacraments or their religion could save them. What you need to be saved is seek first God's righteousness. And God's righteousness is Jesus Christ. Naaman is going to have a problem. Verse 10. And Elisha sent a messenger unto him, saying, Go and wash in Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. And Naaman loses his cool and hits the ceiling. Naaman was wroth, verse 11, and went away in a rage. Verse 12. Lost his temper. Why? Well, read on and understand why. Verse 11. But Naaman was wroth, and went away, and said, Behold, I thought. That's your problem. Too much thinking. If you shut your mouth for a while and quit thinking about a bunch of junk, you'd get saved. God said, My thoughts are not your thought, my ways are not your ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so my thoughts are higher than yours, saith the Lord. You thought. You didn't think very good. You thought no man should be killed for stealing fruit, didn't you? Come on, didn't you? Didn't you think a fellow could go to hell for adultery, suicide, or murder, but you couldn't kill him because he stole fruit off of a tree? Of course you thought that. You're just wrong as you could be. That's how your first parents died. Stealing fruit off of a tree. I thought, too bad you think so much. It'll prevent you from getting saved. I thought, he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and strike his hand over the place and recover the leper. He wanted a sensational Benny Hinn type of thing, Jimmy Swaggart, 2,000 people attending, applauding with the organ playing jungle music, and everybody clapping and shouting, and be healed, in the name of Jesus Christ, or you unclean spirit, I bind thee in the, somebody talking in tongues, hostile shantan, tybo, tie, that kind of business. And nothing happened. Nothing spectacular. Go down and take a bath in a dirty old river. Do you think there's anything pretty about the Jordan River? It's just as muddy as the Mississippi. And not near as big. Go down there and go in 7 times. And here's Naaman's thinking. I thought, here's what he thought. Verse 12. He thought, quote, Are not Abana and Pharpar, rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Well, no matter of fact, they're not. He said, how do you know? Well, if they were, you could have washed in them and gotten clean, fella, but didn't work, did it? See how I get the people get the thinking all screwed up? Are not Abana and Pharpar, rivers of Damascus, better than the waters of Israel? Well, if they're better, why didn't they work? May I not wash in them and be clean? Well, then why didn't you do it? It wouldn't have worked. He wouldn't have got clean anyway if he had. So he turned away and went away in a rage. Not going to get saved if you got to do something stupid. One day, many, many years ago, Mel Trotter was superintendent of the Pacific Garden Rescue Mission. He dealt with a high-class Presbyterian man who came night after night and was upset but wouldn't get saved. And finally he said to me, Sir, you know you're lost. Why don't you make a decision tonight? He said, I don't want to get saved in a rescue mission. And he said, why not? He said, well, it just isn't, proper. If I ever get saved, I'm going to get saved in the Presbyterian Church. And Mel Trotter said, Mister, if you're still telling God when you're going to get saved and how you're going to get saved, where you're going to get saved, you ain't going to get saved. You're going to get lost. You don't set up the conditions, buddy. God sets them up. Seek ye the Lord while he may be found. Call him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. And to his God shall he return, for he will abundantly pardon. On his terms, not yours. The Bible said he'll have mercy, and whom he'll have mercy. So it is not of him that willeth, but God that showeth mercy. God has decided where and when he's going to have mercy at you, and your opinion about it is not even going to be asked for. If that book is true, God has decided the place he's going to show mercy to you is at Calvary. And if you don't come to take your place here in Calvary with thieves, like Christ was numbered with the transgressors, if you're not willing to do that, he's not going to have mercy on you. You're going to meet God in wrath, and you wish to God that you listened to him instead of what you thought. God's righteousness shows up on this earth in Calvary between 2 crooks. So he said, I come as a thief in the night. And he said, when they came out to arrest him, are you come out as against thieves? And took the place of a thief, though he was innocent. That's where God says, I'll have mercy on the sinner. I'll have mercy on him right there. And if he decides I'll have mercy on him someplace, I may answer this prayer and I may not, but I'm not going to give him any salvation at all till he meets my conditions. And his conditions have nothing to do with your religion. Because religions are what people invent to do to try to earn God's favor. And the Lord doesn't pay attention to them. His conditions are that you receive his Son, because his Son lived a perfect life and died a perfect death for sinners, and rose from the dead, and is able to save to the uttermost all them that come unto God by him. For as many as received him, not a church, as received him, not water baptism, as many as received him, not as many just believe 2 Corinthians 5:21, as many as believe him and receive him, to them he gave power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name. That's it. Behold, I thought. He went away in a rage. And his servants came near and spake to him. Now thank God for this anonymous man. Some of the greatest people in the Bible are anonymous. Did you notice that little girl in this passage where we began to study this morning in verse 3 is anonymous? She has no name. Did you notice that? Do you know that little boy that got 5 fishes and 2 loaves of bread out to 5,000 people? You don't even know what his name was? Did you notice in the last chapter you studied in Kings, 2 Kings 4, where the great woman of Shunem shows up, and she's the only woman in the Bible called a great woman, and you're not even given her name? At the judgment seat of Christ, there's going to be a lot of surprises, brethren, when you see how many anonymous people had that did something for the Lord you never even approached to. Some servant knowing his master well, an armor bearer, probably been with him for years in combat, and he knew the old man. So he pulled alongside him and he said, My father, if the prophet bid thee do some great thing, wouldst thou not have done it? Oh, that's below the belt, boy. That one hurt. It's a military man. If the prophet told you to take Hill 66 under a bombardment, would you try it? If the prophet told you to get down one of those rat tunnels and hunt out of Vietnam and kill him in the dark, would you have done it? If God had, if the prophet had bid you to go across a minefield under bombardment, would you have gone? If the prophet had told you to break into a stalag and rescue a prisoner and go through a barbed wire and get him in, get him out, wouldn't you have tried it? And Naaman's heart says, yes, buddy, you certainly would. And once he said that inside, the servant said, how much rather then, when he saith to thee, wash and be clean. That is, big boy, if you can do these big great things and get more money than a man in the automobile business, and all this stuff, and help all the poor kids out and give more to the cerebral palsy fund than anybody else, and help guide the church fathers and the town fathers right, how much rather can you walk down an aisle and confess Christ as your Savior? See where the hair is short? There's 2 kinds of courage. There's physical courage, and Naaman had it. Now he's being tested on spiritual courage. What do you suppose his troops are going to think when their company commander lines them up there on the bank of that river and puts them at parade rest and strips his clothes and goes out there following the teaching of some cockeyed, fanatical, street-preaching prophet and dunks himself 7 times? Can you do that, Naaman? This world is filled with men who can do great big things. That come to something little, they're faint. I'm talking to some man right now. And honey, I don't know where you are, but I know men. I know men real well. Believe me. Take my word for it. I know men real well. You say what kind of man? Any cotton-picking kind of man you can lay your hands on. Lumberjack, Eskimo, deep-sea diver, deep-sea fisherman, commercial fisherman, fishing for fun, fellows run truck farms, farmers, wheat farmers, lumberjacks, fellows that fly for a living, airplane pilots, drunkards, bartenders, dance band drummers, football players, basketball players, hockey players, preachers, evangelists, pastors, teachers. I know men. And there's many a man that work a double shift to take care of his family and take 10 years off his life trying to pay his bills because he loved his wife and kids, and he wouldn't back down in a fight for love and money and take you on with cue sticks in the pool hall or brass knucks in an alley any time of the week. But if he had to walk down the aisle in front of a bunch of old women and children and turn around and tell him he loved Jesus Christ, he'd faint like an old woman. Amen. 14. Then he went down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God, and his flesh came like to the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. It worked. Can't you see him snorting and spitting out water, going up there 4 or 5 times? Those troops up there is laughing their head off. Yeah, the old man he ain't talking that crazy prophet now, that jerk, street preaching out of yelling folks, tell them going to hell, that kind of thing. Look at him out there, look at that old CO, that old infantry CO, when he came in that water, he probably turned around and called them everything but white, boy. I bet the air was blue as that water. That water ain't very blue. Turn around there, you blank, IDs. But you couldn't have stopped that snickering in ranks, nudging each other. I know the troops. I've been with them. And boy, the 7th time he came up, he said, if this doesn't work, I'm going to go back and wring that prophet's neck like I'd wring the neck of a goose. And up he came and looked at his hands and his arms, and my God, he had gone down under water as a 45-year-old combat man, and the skin on his arms and his hands was the skin of a 15-year-old boy. Now, you can't be baptized 7 times to get saved, and getting baptized wasn't going to save you. But there's a fountain filled with blood drawn from Emmanuel's veins, and sinners plunged beneath that flood lose all the guilty stains. The dying thief rejoiced to see that fountain in his day, and there may I, though vile as he, wash all my sins away. First thing he did was go right back to Elisha and thank him, and he said, now I know. Assurance of salvation. Now I know, he says. Now I know there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. They're not in Medina and Mecca and Rome. The God of all the earth is in Israel. Salvation of the Jews. And he got assurance just like that. That's one of the greatest pictures of salvation there is in the Old Testament. It doesn't teach that the water baptism will save you, or that going under the water 7 times will do it. But it teaches you that if you'll do what the man of God told you to do, and he did here, it'll work. And if there's a man of God in this age, you know what he's going to tell you? He's going to tell you, believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and thou shalt be saved. For as many as received him, to them he gave power to become the sons of God, even them that believe on his name. Wherefore he is able to save the uttermost all them that come unto God by him. May the Lord bless you, and good day. Thank you, and once again, good morning to students and teachers of the Word of God. We have a very, very familiar passage to expound on this morning, a passage known to every professing Christian probably in America, and this will be John chapter 3. And the passage deals with the new birth and has the famous summation of the gospel in verse 16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Now in this section we're looking at, in verse 1 to 3, we have the greatest warning on this earth. In verse 4 to 8, we have the greatest need on this earth. In verse 9 to 12, we have the greatest teacher on this earth. And in verse 13 to 17, obviously, the greatest love on this earth. A tremendous passage, what we call salient verses in the New Testament. The greatest teacher beyond any question is the Lord Jesus Christ. Matter of fact, all your documents are dated from his birth. The greatest need in this earth has nothing to do with religion or sacraments. The greatest need in this earth has nothing to do with philosophy or the golden rule or good deeds, and is not connected with the 10 Commandments. The greatest need in this earth in the passage has nothing to do with peace on earth or stopping wars or curing diseases. The greatest need in this earth is given you by the greatest teacher in verse 4 to verse 8. And then finally, the greatest love on this earth is demonstrated by the fact that love by definition is, quote, greater love hath no man than this. This is the ultimate in man's love. Greater love hath no man than this, than he lay down his life for his friends.
This is Don Nesbitt YouTube.
But God lays down his life for his enemies. So the greatest love that ever showed up on this earth was not shown by any philosopher or humanist or evolutionist. The greatest love that ever showed up on this earth was God himself taking on human flesh to die for his sinful creation. You can't beat it. The Bible says, when in due time Christ died for the ungodly, and when we were enemies, we're reconciled by his cross. Now this is very, very important, because nothing on earth is overemphasized in America more than love in every form. A Frenchman wrote a book called Romance to Death, talking about the fact that Christian radio stations just pound out love, 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 love until you're sick to your stomach, and forget what love is. Love is loving someone enough to die for them. And that isn't bought up. Now John 3:16 is bought up, but nobody thinks about it, because John said, herein is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us, and brethren, if God so loved us, we ought to love one another. Which simply means that any religion, now you better listen, any religion by any one of the 199 nations that meet in downtown New York that doesn't know about the love of God manifest in John 3:16 cannot love each other. Because the statement was, herein is love, and that it had nothing to do with you or your friends. Not that we loved God, but that he loved us and gave his Son to be a propitiation for our sins. Brethren, if God so loved us, if that's true, we ought to love one another. You should be able to do it because of the example. But if you don't believe that Christ was God manifest in the flesh dying for your sins, you have no example. So I don't care what religion you belong to, shut your mouth about love and keep it shut if you don't know what you're talking about. Because if you haven't experienced the greatest love there is, somebody dying for their enemies, the ungodly, you don't know what you're talking about. And that applies right now to perhaps 3 billion people on the face of this earth. That talk about love is hot air. You're talking about humans treating humans right so humans will think well of humans. You don't know what you're talking about. That's our lesson today. Overcoming uncertainty. All right, don't forget the blowout beginning. This is the last time I'll have a chance to talk to you about it, but the Baptist blowout begins Thursday night and continues Friday morning, Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning, Sunday night, the 24th, 25th, 26th, and 27th of this month. And I won't get a chance to talk to you about it till it's about over next Sunday. And all I can tell you is what Jesus told Andrew and James and John and Peter. He said, come and see, and come to listen too. You'll hear all kinds of real gospel music and Bible music and not contemporary jungle music. And we have some ministers here that can minister. I've known these men for years. I haven't known every Christian celebrity personally throughout the years. I might have missed personal contact with Theodore Epp and Charlie Fuller, but personal contact with Billy Graham and John Rollins, and personal contact with Jack Hyles and the rest of them. And these are 3 of the greatest preachers you're ever going to hear. And all I can tell you is come and expose yourself, and then you make up your mind about it later. All right, John chapter 3, a very familiar passage, but a great passage, and one that you should never get tired of reading. Verse 1. There was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews. Stop and think. He was more consecrated than you are, was more pious than you are, more holy than you are, more religious than you are. That's the bird that fasted 2 times a week and gave tithes of everything. And one of them, Paul, was blameless as touching the law. And you couldn't say that. These Pharisees are nothing for you to turn up your nose at it when it comes to legal correctness and separation and dedication and consecration. They were far ahead of the average Christian today. The fact they were blind and crucified their Messiah is something else, but this old boy Nicodemus got saved. As a matter of fact, many of the Pharisees got saved, but most of them were afraid to confess Christ. You see where you're getting this stuff from. I'm getting it from the only book that'll give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And that'll be a King James 1611 authorized version. Quote, "Nevertheless, among the chief rulers," there's Nicodemus, "many believed on him, but because the Pharisees, they did not confess him, lest they should be put out of the synagogue. For they loved the praise of men more than the praise of God." Now Nicodemus finally confessed him after he was dead. Did you notice that? John chapter 19, verse 38. "After this, Joseph of Arimathea, being a disciple of Jesus, but secretly, for fear of the Jews, besought Pilate he might take away the body of Jesus. And he came and took the body of Jesus, and there came also Nicodemus." John 19, verse 39. That's our gentleman of John 3. Up he shows after the death of Christ, and boldly is connected with the burying of a criminal who suffered capital punishment. "There came also Nicodemus, which at the first came to Jesus by night, and brought a mixture of myrrh aloes, and they took the body of Jesus and wound it in linen clothes, and buried him." John 3 verse 2, "The same came to Jesus by night." Wants it secretly because the Pharisees, they think they're dealing with a heretic. "Rabbi," politely, "we know thou art a teacher come from God." A confession by a ruler that many of the Pharisees knew he was not a false prophet and a liar, but that he was a teacher come from God. "For no man can do those miracles that thou doest except God be with him." And there it is. There's a confession that many of the Pharisees recognized Christ's claims, but they were afraid to profess him publicly. Jesus answered, said to him, "Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God." Now, did you ever stop to think what you're reading when you read the Bible? Do you realize what you actually read just then? One of the highest religious Old Testament saints in the Bible shows up and politely confesses to Christ his indebtedness for his ability to teach and recognize him a great teacher, and after that compliment, the Lord doesn't even ask him to sit down and doesn't say thank you for the compliment. Jesus Christ in the New Testament, one of the rudest, crudest, coarsest characters you ever met in your life. And the fact that some of you Christians don't believe that shows how much time you've been spending in that book. Not very much. He sits down at a dinner table and a man says, "There, you forgot to wash your hand before you ate." And he says, "You forgot to wash your heart." At the dinner table. You say, "Where's that, Brother Ruckman?" You mean you don't know? No, you don't. As a matter of fact, probably your preacher doesn't know. You realize the Jesus Christ you trust as your Savior, do you know anything about him at all? Do you know what happened one time? He was preaching to a bunch of folks and people said, "Mary, your mother's out there. The mother of God's outside there waiting to talk to you." And he said, "She ain't my mother. The people do the will of God's my mother." You know where it is? Of course you don't. Preachers have quit preaching these pastors. You talk about rudeness. A woman comes to Jesus one time begging, please heal my daughter, please heal my daughter, please heal me. He says, beat it. But heal my daughter, heal my daughter. It's not fit to take the children's bread and give it to a dog like you. What a way to talk to somebody praying. I've been in this work now for 56 years. I could name on two hands the preachers I've heard that would dare preach on the pastors I just mentioned. Less than 10. And none of them were Christian celebrities. I never heard J. Vernon McGee or John MacArthur or Chuck Swindoll or Charles Stanley or Billy Graham even touch those passages, because they describe Christ's nature. And brother, you talk about rude. They come to him and say, don't you know the Pharisees were offended by this saying? You know what he says? Listen, if he's one of these modern preachers, he would have said, well, I'm sorry I offended somebody I didn't mean to. And I realize it might be a felony as a hate crime in saying what I said or thinking what I did, but I'm genuinely sorry and I'll make amends for it. Do you know what he said when they said some of the stuff you're putting out is offending the Pharisees? He said, leave them alone. If the blind lead the blind, they'll both fall in a ditch. That's the Savior these FM stations pretend they are presenting. They're not presenting him. The Jesus Christ they're giving you is not the one in that book. But just like Muhammad, when he talks about Jesus Christ being a prophet, he's not talking about any Jesus Christ in Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. The Jesus Christ in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John died on a cross atoning for sin. Muhammad's Jesus Christ never died on a cross. And he didn't die for anybody's sins. He was just recognized as a prophet, like Moses and David and Muhammad. Or perhaps Balaam. John 3, verse 3, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. Nicodemus saith to him, good question, how could a man be born when he is old? Good question. You see, he believed Christ literally and took him literally and gave a literal response to it. He says, okay, if a man has to be born again, tell me how to do it. How can a man be born when he is old? Question. Can he enter the second time in his mother's womb and be born? Obviously not. You can't be born twice physically. Why would you think you could be born twice spiritually? Why would any of you Christians think that after you were born again, you could lose it, and then get born again, and then lose it, and then born again and again and again? You couldn't. Any more than you could be born again physically. When you're born physically the first time, you're born of your father's seed. And once you're born of your father's seed, you couldn't undo your father's seed no matter what you did. You could change your name. It wouldn't change your birth. You could deny your birthright. It still wouldn't change your birth. You can die in prison in the hot squad as a murderer, and it wouldn't change your birth. And when a man is born again, quote, being born again, not of corruptible seed, physical birth, but of incorruptible seed by the word of God, which liveth and abideth forever. You cannot be born again and again and again. Verse 5, Jesus said, verily I say to thee, except a man be born of water. He didn't say that the first time. And of the Spirit, he didn't say that the first time. Now it's very important that you understand that verse 3 and verse 5 are not the same answers. And the reason why can only be because of verse 4. You see, you don't have to have a third grade education to get the passage. If you're an ordained minister or a priest or a bishop or a cardinal, you can get it screwed up so bad you'll damn your whole congregation. Because you'll connect the water birth 5 with water baptism, which is what all of them did. And the word baptism doesn't occur anywhere in the context within 10 verses either way. If you counted 10 verses before what he's saying right here in the passage, and then counted 10 after what he says in the passage, you couldn't find the word baptism. Why do you say water? Because Nicodemus said his mother's womb. And if you can't figure that out, and no denomination can, so far, except the Baptists, you've destroyed your whole church. The prince of the Westminster and Heidelberg Confession of the Faith and the Presbyterian Church say this is water baptism. The Church of Christ said it's water baptism. The Catholic missals and catechisms say it's water baptism. The Lutheran smaller catechism said it's water baptism. The Anglican prayer book says it's water baptism. John Wesley's manual said it's water baptism. The Bible said it is no more connected with baptism than a bingo game. It's connected with your first birth. Look at 1 John, Scripture to Scripture. Watch how the Scriptures interpret the Scripture without the aid of any infallible church or infallible teacher at all. 1 John, chapter 5, verse 6. This he who came by water and blood, even Jesus Christ, not by water only, but by water and blood. And of the Spirit that beareth witness, because the Spirit is truth. For there are three that bear record in heaven, the Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost, and the three that bear witness of the earth, the Spirit, the water, and the blood. The term baptism is not found anywhere in the book of 1 John. You're dealing with baptismal obsessional neurotics. And every time they see the word, the water, they say baptism. And every time they see the word baptism, they say water. The water is mentioned in connection with Christ's birth in John 5, verse 6 to verse 9, and it's mentioned twice. So when he dies, out of his side comes blood and water. John, chapter 19, verse 34. 3 times you're told that water and blood and water in the Spirit have nothing to do with water baptism. 3 times in connection with Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ is about to connect the water and the Spirit with his own death on the cross in verse 14. That means every major denomination tried to give you salvation through a church ritual or a sacrament or an ordinance without the new birth. Verily I say unto you, except a man be born of water, first birth in the Spirit, he cannot enter the kingdom of God. Why does water picture the first birth? Piece of cake. The first physical life that ever showed up on this earth showed up in the water. Genesis chapter 1, verse 20, verse 21, and the first time the word life occurs in your Bible, it's physical life in water. Genesis 2, verse 20 to 21. Your first birth is a water birth. That's why he said to the disciples, follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. And the second birth is of the Spirit. If there was any doubt in your mind about it, the next verse would have cleared up the whole passage if anybody had read it. Because the next verse says the fleshy birth is the water and the spiritual birth is the Spirit. Not even Scofield escaped the plague. And when he got to the water, he had a washing of water by the Word in Ephesians to make it part of the spiritual birth. It wasn't. Water brings forth physical life. Genesis 1. John 3, verse 5. Watch it. Verily, verily, I say, except a man be born of water. Verse 6. That which is born of the flesh is flesh. And of the Spirit. Verse 6. That which is born of the Spirit is spirit. He cannot enter the kingdom of God. For that which is born of the flesh, water birth, is flesh. And that which is born of the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, is spirit. Marvel not that I said unto ye back there in verse 3, ye must be born again. and baptism will make you a wet sinner who's only been born once. There it is. You can't beat it. Like a rotten egg, you can't beat it, but it sure smells. And that stink has cursed Christianity since Acts chapter 2, where somebody tried to make Acts 2:38 the means of the new birth, when there wasn't any connection at all. You say, what is the connection? Keep reading and you'll get the connection. The wind bloweth where it listeth, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but canst not tell whence it cometh or whither it goeth. So is everyone that is born of the Spirit, not water and the Spirit. The Spirit. Nicodemus said, how can these things be? He's like your religious leaders today. He can't figure it out. And Jesus kids him. Art thou a master of Israel, knowest not these things? You're a PhD and an LTD, are you? You had 22 years of college and 10 years of seminary, and you don't understand the new birth by the Holy Spirit? What's the matter, Nicodemus? Haven't been reading you a Bible? You got an Old Testament, Nicodemus? Yes, sir. Yes, Rabbi. You got an Old Testament written in your own language as a Hebrew speaking Hebrew? Yes, Rabbi. And you never read Psalm 22? Well, I don't exactly recall it. Besides, we've been expurgating the manuscripts, and there are glosses in them and need to be reinterpreted, and there are many places that need to be corrected, and there are too many pious insertions. Psalm 22 is in the crucifixion, and beginning with the words, Christ cried on the cross, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And winds up with, they pierce my hands and feet, and part my garments, and cast lots my vesture. At the end of that book, it says, a seed shall serve him, and that seed that served the Lord will be accounted to the Lord for a generation. The Lord generated that seed, born of incorruptible seed by the word of God that liveth and abideth forever. Any Christian with a high school education of the King James Bible could have found out what a master in Israel couldn't find out with an original language. Verily, verily, I say unto thee, we speak that we do know, referring to the Trinity, and testify what we have seen, ye receive not our witness. If I told you earthly things, water birth, and you believe not, how shall you believe if I tell you of heavenly things, spiritual birth? And no man hath ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man which is in heaven. Well, he is in the King James Bible. He's not in the New IV or a New International Version or a New American Standard. If you have any Bible, the King James Bible, Christ couldn't be in heaven and earth at the same time in John 3:13 because they have removed the last four words from the verse. Art thou a master in Israel and are too stupid to catch that? And here comes the new birth. Here's how you accomplish it. And as, see the similitude? He's multiplied similitudes by the ministry of the prophets. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, my, how's that going to affect the new birth? But that's what he's saying. As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have eternal life. You get born again with something that matches a serpent on a pole. What is it? It's the next verse. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. There's the serpent on the pole. God hath made him to be sin for us. Christ hath redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us, for it is written, Cursed is everyone that hangs on a tree. Like Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. The new birth is accomplished by believing on a blood atonement of a crucified Savior raised up to die for your sins. Not in the Koran or in Islam. No Muslim believes that of any kind. That's the Holy Bible. That's the Holy Scriptures. The greatest love you'll ever see or hear of. Greater love hath no man than this, than he lay down his life for his friends, but God commendeth his love towards us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for the ungodly. That's how you get the new birth. No church membership, no sacraments, no ordinances, no water baptism. The new birth is accomplished by grace through faith, by believing that God so loved the world he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever, that's you, whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For as many as received him, not the church, as many as received him, not the sacraments, as many as received him, not water baptism, as many as received him, not the 10 Commandments, as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons, a birth boy, sons, a birth buddy, a born-again Son of God, even to them, quote, that believe on his name. And his name is Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins. Neither is there any other name given among heaven whereby you must be saved, and you must be born again. Have you been born again? If you're counting anything you did to get you the new birth, you've never experienced it. You are to believe on somebody. You don't do the works. He did them for you. May the Lord bless you, and good day.